before. Had to go there, and my wife and my daughter looked at her and said, yeah, it's like party like it's 2017 or something like that. No, it's not that exactly, but come on over, Randy, Eric, Christy. I thank God for this great couple. I mean, I have loved on them, but more than that, they have loved on me more. And it was so funny when first thing me and Christy connected, we was talking, laughing. She said, "I want you to know right now we're crazy. I'm a Pollock." I'm going, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "Here we go." So she just told me right back, we just do things different. I said, "Our life, just how life is." I said, "Well, good." But when I heard their story, my heart dropped, and I thought, "Wow, this is an experience that I think our whole church needs to hear." And this is something that happened in their life. And I told them to take their time. We've got some pictures. A lot of it's been edited, and so you can only imagine. Just be creative when you see some of them. That we had to edit some of this for you to look at, but some of it is still terrible. But I could have showed a lot of stuff, and it could have been terrible. But it's going to rotate. We're going to let this play through, and as they talk, and you'll see a lot of these things that happen. So, Christy and Randy, I just want you to just give your heart, tell us the story, take your time. Let's give them a hand as they do.
Well, first of all, I just want to give God praise. I mean, Jesus is why we're here, why we live our lives. And, I mean, if you don't have faith, hopefully after this story, big faith, little faith, I mean, it all matters. So, give praise to the Lord. All right, my name's Randy. It's Christy. We had a little life-changing event back in 2013. We begin by thanking Pastor Mark for letting us share our testimony. I fought to get custody of my son Ben when we lived in Indiana, which we had was in kindergarten. His birth mother was found unfit, but not unfit enough to terminate her parental rights. We had to meet at the police department because there was always an argument. One day an officer came to us and asked if we were okay because she was screaming and carrying on. Christy and I got married in 2006 when Ben was 8. His birth mother got worse than because Ben loved Christy. She had visitation every other weekend, 30 days in the summer. If she showed up, we would be sitting at the police department when she would show up. But when we pick up him, he looked so sick and sad. Once we even had to pick him up and take him to the doctor because he said he was so sick. The doctor said he was fine, maybe a stomach bug. He always told us he was tired because he couldn't sleep over there. At one point, he really had bite marks, and another time he had a perfect handprint bruise on his knee. We took him to the police department, and they wouldn't even take a report. The officer asked us what we did to deserve it. We were shocked. The following day, the birth mother left a message on my phone laughing because we tried to get her in trouble, but it didn't work because she had friends. Seemed like we were fighting a losing battle. Our attorney said that I could be thrown in jail if I didn't send him to her house. We kept praying. I lost my job due to downsizing when the housing and motorhome market crashed in our area in Indiana. I couldn't find another job other than a part-time minimum wage job. I had an aunt and uncle in Columbus, Georgia, and they told us to come down here because there were a lot of jobs down here. Went to court for approval. At this point, we sold anything of value to pay for the attorney. We were in Georgia for 1.5 months where I found a really good job. Christy was supervisor at JCPenney. I took a job and took a regular position in Columbus. We thought everything would be great now. Ben started in a new school, honor roll, and his grades dropped to failing. He was was suspended from the bus for hitting and not listening to the driver. He was suspended for school several times. His anger issues had gotten worse when we drove all the way to Bowling Green, Kentucky to meet her so she could have him for 30 days. We sat there and she never showed up, but kept calling to say she was on her way. Then she claimed she was in an accident and couldn't be there. I had a friend see her at her house. She never left the home. We basically made the trip for nothing. His anger got really bad after that. He was messing with the lady's mailbox at the bus stop, and the police were called. We had some anger issues with him that we had to discipline him for, but nothing like this. We were yelling at him because this time he could go to jail. Christy said very calmly in a soft voice, "Hold it, you are so angry. Why?" That lady at the bus stop never did nothing to you. He sat there for 2 hours telling that his stepdad, half-sister, sexually abused him, and his birth mother physically abused him for lying about the abuse when he told her what was happening.
We were floored. We didn't know what to do. It was a Wednesday, so we went to our church in Columbus, and a lady that was there actually worked for social services. She told us to call Indiana CPS, Child Protective Services. So we did, as well as our attorney that we still had in Indiana. At this point, her visitation was terminated. She still had the phone number. That never changed, but she only called a few times. We were getting ready for church, and Ben said that she had called. He was standing there and heard her leaving the message. He didn't want to pick up the phone because he didn't want to speak with her. We received a phone call from CPS telling us that they weren't going to do anything because Ben was lying. They called, told them they were going to come in a week, and then said because their 3 stories matched and Ben's didn't, he was lying, so they weren't charged with anything. Ben's anger really spiked at that point because he knew they weren't going to do anything, and he felt like he was a liar, and we told him it was okay. God brought us to Columbus. There was a reason why your dad lost his job. God took you out of that situation. We got this. It's okay. Well, he ran away 7 times in a month and a half because of the nightmares he was having. I ended up quitting my job to stay home. He got suspended from gym class for not dressing 5 times. We said, why? Something so silly. Why would you not change your clothes? He said, well, they were going outside. And I thought my mom or Scott would be out there to kill me because that's what they told me they would do if I ever told. He told us all sorts of things. So we didn't know what else to do. We tried everything. So we took him to a mental crisis facility. They did a mental evaluation, and they admitted him. He said he was cutting himself. We were shocked by some of the things he said during that evaluation. He had even admitted to trying to kill himself when he was at her house. We knew nothing of this. He was there 9 days under 24/7 care. They put him on medication, gave him some intense counseling. He was diagnosed with ADHD, ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. This one explained a lot. No matter what we said, he argued with us, and he always knew better. He never listened to anyone, no authority figure, not us, no teachers, not police, nobody. He was diagnosed with MDD, major depressive disorder, Asperger's, that they then changed to bipolar, and separation disorder, which is showing no emotion, no empathy, and easily angered. We saw a movie in a movie theater. It was so sad. Everybody was crying. even the men. And Ben showed no emotion. He just sat there. When we asked him if he thought it was sad, he said, "A little, I guess." He would love to be in the kitchen with me while I taught him how to cook. He said that he loved our talks and that he was happy that he could talk to us about anything. The psychiatrist told us that Ben was in his own world. He knew he was abused, but he didn't know how many of his stories were actually real. There was definite signs of abuse, but he could not tell to what extent. After years of counseling, we ended up in drug court, a program for youth doing drugs to show them the right path. I quit my job. I was in court every other week with him. He went for about a year. He was huffing, which made his anger even worse. He was huffing anything he could steal from his teachers. He was inhaling markers, whiteout, whatever he could. He said they taught him how to do it at his mom's because then he would feel nothing, and he liked that. He finally graduated from the program, and he got suspended about a week later from school. We asked him what he was thinking, how he could graduate the program and then a week later get suspended. He said he knew what they were looking for. So he's been in the program long enough, and he was just done, and he wanted out of it, so he did what they wanted him to do. And now he could do whatever he wanted again. The psychiatrist told us that he has been doing this for 30 years, and he doesn't see Ben making it. He told me that we need to prepare ourselves to mourn now, because if Ben didn't kill himself, he would be dead at the hands of somebody else by his bad choices he was making. That was the most difficult thing I could hear. I was never able to have any children of my own. Ben was mine. I didn't know what to do with that information. We just went home and we prayed and we prayed. The last mental evaluation that we had, gentleman sat down, his eyes got big. He looked at us. He said, "I've never met a child like that." He said, "That is the most manipulative child I have ever seen." He said, "I sat back and I watched him." He said, "He acted one way with you and your husband. He acted one way with the nurses. He acted one way with the doctors, and he acted another way with me." He said, "He answered my questions before I even asked him." He said, "I'm sorry to tell you," he said, "but that's a serial killer in the making." As a parent, what do? You go to church. He was in Bible quiz, and he was really good at it. We just prayed. That's all we could do. We pulled in our church family and praying with us. We were exhausted, physically and financially. Between all the counselors, all the medications, we were just done. We didn't know what else to do. We weren't making any progress with him. One day, I was now working at our church, and I received a phone call from 911. She said that Ben came home and saw someone running out of our house with some of our stuff. He called the police, and the police got there so quickly that they saw the gentleman running, and they chased him. He dropped all of our stuff, but they did not catch him, but we got almost all of our stuff back. But that was enough to shake Ben again and make his anger even worse. We had a metal gun safe. They kicked that in, got what they could out of that, but they did not get all the guns. That shook us enough that we pulled the handgun out, stuck it in my clothes, in my armoire, hidden in our room. But we were renting a duplex, and they did not have a lock on the bedroom door. So to be sure, most of the time when I would leave, I would stick something in the door to make sure Ben wasn't in there. It got to the point where he didn't go in there, so I didn't do anything. And on Thursday, the one picture that you saw was Easter, where we were all dressed up and life was as happy as could be. We didn't have any issues. It was great. And then on Thursday, I came home, went to make dinner. We ran to the store to get a few things for dinner. Ben's in the kitchen with me like always. Everything's fine, and he went to grab a pan out of the cupboard, and he looked at me and he said, "I just hit my head on the cupboard." And I looked at him and he was singing his words, and that was very odd. But again, you never knew what kind of mood he was going to be in or when. Pick and choose your battles. I didn't even acknowledge it. We just went on about cooking dinner. I ran to work, got Randy, came home, ate dinner. Everything was fine. You want to take over?
When I came home, we were eating supper, and Ben said that a girl at school had to be saved. So he wrote a whole page of scripture from his Bible quiz information. And he had, that was pretty good. I then asked him if he had bagged up this bed skirt from this old bed that we asked him to do for several days. It was just ongoing, just said it, had an answer, fine. I got upset and I told him, get a shower, go to bed. Kristen and I were so exhausted. I've been working 12-hour days. I didn't have time for issues. One day, Christy asked how his day was, and he yelled, "Why are you yelling at me?" He said, "I didn't even raise my voice." He said, "No, but to me you were. This is odd."
ODD.
ODD. Feel like the world is against you even when it's not. So Christy, I didn't know what to expect that next day, Friday, April 12th. We didn't want to deal with Ben alone, so she went shopping until I got on to work at 5:30. Otherwise, she'd been home 2 hours earlier. We got home about 5:45, started to read the mail. Randy says what he remembers, and kind of goes, ironically, it was papers from Indiana from the courthouse about Ben. So we're standing, she was on our right, and we're reading like this.
This way.
And Ben was probably about where Mark is. So we're just reading away, and all of a sudden, pow, pow, pow. And we're like, just looked up. And I ended up dropping to the floor. Kind of like you shot a deer, the hind legs come up, exactly what I did, in a cement floor. And I went right to the floor, and I looked back, and there's blood splattered up the wall. And I kind of got up to my feet, and I looked, and said, "Man, what are you doing?" And here he is with our 9mm pointing right at us. And I was like, Jesus. I mean, I just started pleading the blood of God. I was like, what is going on? And he kept saying, "I just want you to feel my pain." I was like, what pain? And by then, I was stumbling up, and then Christy ran straight back. We're in the duplex. So straight back to the bedroom she went, and I just fell back, and I was just pleading with him. And she got her phone, and when she took off, I looked, and her hand was just dangling by the skin. And I didn't know what. All I know, my leg hurt. It curled up. I couldn't even move. And
And as I was reading the mail, I heard this pop, and I thought it sounded like a balloon. I'm looking around. I said, "Where'd that balloon come from?" And I looked down, and all I remember seeing is red on my arm. And I said, on my hand, I said, "Where'd that red balloon come from?" It looked like red rubber to me. I didn't remember half of what happened. I heard him yell. I heard 2 more pops. When he let out with a yell and I looked over at him, I saw blood up the wall. And I heard him yell, "Ben, what are you doing?" And I looked up and saw Ben. He had no expression on his face whatsoever. His face was pure gray. No color in his eyes, nothing. And he was just sitting there with the gun aimed right at us. I had no thoughts of anything. I didn't even realize what happened to my arm, nothing. All I could think is I had to get away. He dropped down to the ground, and I knew I had to get help. So I ran back to our bedroom, but again, it didn't have a lock on the door. So I had my foot on the door as I'm trying to call 911. At that point, I had my phone in a case on my hip, right where I got shot. So I'm trying to get the phone out of this case with one arm because I couldn't use this one, but I still had no idea what it looked like. Even looking right at it, I didn't see it. Didn't even register. So I'm trying to dig the phone out with my left hand. Once I did, it was sticky from the blood from the gunshot. So I'm trying to slide the phone, balance it on my leg, and try to slide it with my left hand all at the same time to try to call 911. I ended up dialing 411, hung up, tried to call again. In the meantime, he's yelling from the living room, "Call 911. I said, "I'm trying." I couldn't think straight. I couldn't anything. And like I said, half of it I didn't remember. He said I said a cuss word, and I don't believe him. I haven't said a bad word since I met him, so I still don't believe that one. But that was definitely an experience that half of it I do not remember. And he was in the room with him, so he knew firsthand, and I was behind a door.
So I'm laying there just, pleading the blood of Jesus just repeatedly. It's like, "Ben, why are you doing this?" And that's when he had said, just would feel our anger. It's like, what anger? You got everything you ever wanted. And the whole time he's staring right here. He's going back to the hallway and going back to me, and I'm still laying on the ground. And by then, I hear commotion outside. The cops are showing up. And I told him, it's like, if you don't drop that weapon, they're going to kill you. They're right out there. They're going to come in and shoot you. And I'm still laying there, and just like a switch. I mean, the color came to his face. I know God intervened. He took the clip out of the gun, and he walked it over to me. I'm laying on the ground, and he handed it to me. And I put it down beside me. I said, "Now you need to spread eagle on that floor." And he spread out, nose in the ground, and by then Christy's walking up the hallway. I say, "Get him in here." And
so I'm talking with 911, and she said, "Well, what's happening right now?" I said, "I don't know. I'm back in the bedroom." She said, "Well, can you open the door and find out?" So here I am trying to keep the phone up like this and open the door with this hand because, again, I didn't have my right hand. So I got the door open, and I looked, and I saw Ben with the gun aimed right at Randy. I lost it. I started bawling. I said, "Just tell him to get here. He's going to kill him." He had him at point blank range. Well, when Ben heard me open the door, he aimed the gun at me. So every time he aimed the gun back at Randy, I would yell his name. He had a lot less chance of hitting me down a hallway than hitting Randy right there. So he kept on going back and forth, back and forth. And then all of a sudden I heard Randy just praying and pleading the blood of Jesus. Ben dropped his head, handed him the gun, and I yelled at her as I'm running down the hallway to Randy, and I got behind him. I'm asking him where he's injured, telling them, "Randy's got the gun. Just get in here." So I saw the police officers running up the driveway with guns drawn. They come running in. I remember them jumping on Ben's back and taking him, and all of a sudden there's people everywhere. And paramedics came over to me because I was standing in the middle of the living room, and I said, "Don't worry about me, go to him, he can't move." So they bring in the portable stretcher to take him, and as I get to the door, he said, "Well, are you okay enough you can walk out to the other guys?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I went walking out, and as I hit the doorway, there was so many people coming in. One of the EMTs was there, and his eyes just got huge. He's coming in and sees my arm. And he said, "Oh, honey, you stop. He said, "You can't do it. Come here." And he grabbed me and took me to the stretcher. And I said, to this day, I do not know that man's name, but I will never forget his eyes. As I get in the ambulance, and the other ambulance was backed up right against each other, I could see the police car on the other side of the street, and I could see Ben's head in the back of that police car. It was one of the worst things you could see. Never thought we would ever see that, especially in this situation.
So we'll kind of get back to our little bit of story here. We'll kind of go back and forth.
No, talk about when you were in the ambulance.
Oh, and they brought me, carried me in, and by then I couldn't even move my leg, and I'm looking down. I couldn't even see no blood or nothing. I don't know where I was hit. I was hit because it was just froze right up. And I don't know if you've ever been to Columbus, Georgia. I mean, you got a few bumpy roads, so you're heading to the hospital and feeling every bump.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up getting to the hospital and right to the ER, and kind of look you over, and so we're just waiting there patiently, and she's in one side with just the curtain between us, and I can hear her talking, and I'm just looking down. I got blood just running off the gurney. There was a puddle on the floor, and I'm like, you gonna do something? And we're just laying there, and just lost track of time. And I could hear the wife, asking about me, and I'm asking about her, and it was the one point, I don't know if just the devil was in the nurses that day, but she had to use the bathroom, so they used a pan where they rolled her over on her shot arm. I'm like, oh, I tell you what, boiling, I couldn't get any mad. So I'm like, what are you doing? Then, so we finally get to...
When I was in the ambulance, the EMT that had the big eyeballs started to cut my jeans. I looked at him, I picked my head up, and I said, dude, what are you doing? I said, this is only the second time I wore these. And he looked at me and he said, how can you be joking around at a time like this? I said, how can I not? God just saved our lives. I said, we let Ben shoot a couple times, so he knew how to shoot a gun, but he was not well trained by any stretch of the imagination. But we felt that's how accidents happen if children do not know the right way. So it was a pure God thing that he popped that clip out of there, because we've never showed him anything like that. So we don't know what that was if it wasn't God. And he looked at me and he just shook his head, and he said, I'm sorry. He said, but I have to check your belly wound. And I said, that's all right. So I'm just messing with you. And I said, besides, if it doesn't do me any good to cry, I said it would just make the pain even worse. Like Randy said, every bump. And at this point, he told me both of my bones were sheared. He could see that much, but they wrapped it up to where it was like 5 times the size, but every single bump, those bones were just rubbing together. It was the worst pain I ever felt. And then we get to the ER. They said, who do you want to call? We're from Michigan. Our whole family's in Michigan. Who do you call? So, of course, our church family, my co-workers, and our family that we have here. So they called Denise, my co-worker, and Pastor. Pastor was on a bus trip with all of our prime-timers, 55 and older group. They stopped the bus right there when he got the call, pulled the bus over and started praying for us. When Pastor got home, he got to the hospital, and he said, Christy, I'm so sorry. He said, we were on this trip. I said, I know, I understand that. It's no big deal. And he said, but, what can we do for you? And I said, just pray. I said, pray for this arm, because I don't know if I'm going to have it. I said, pray for our finances. Neither one of us can work. Dreaded to go home to that house. So many reasons at that point. Thankfully, we were running. But Denise, my coworker, showed up, and she actually got the phone from my stuff. They cleaned the phone off for me and handed it to me so I could call the family. Well, there's no way I could call my mom. There's no way I could call my aunt, which I was closer to than my mom. So I called the boss, my oldest sister. She always knows what to do, when to do, and who to do it with. So I made the phone call to her, and then she made the phone calls from there. They didn't tell my mom till the following morning because they knew she wouldn't be able to take it that night. So while I was having surgery on my arm, they went over there and told her. So as they came and they were doing our tests, telling us what our injuries were, what can we do for you? I said, I want my husband. How's my husband? What's going on with my husband? Doctor came in, he said, oh, well, yeah, he's got all this damage through here. He'll have a bag the rest of his life. And he's telling me all this stuff, and I didn't know, I couldn't do anything. So, again, you just pray. So as they're doing all these different tests, gentleman comes in and he looks at me and he's telling me about my arm. Both bones have been sheared, some of the bone missing, and he said we're going to have to do surgery at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., I don't even remember.
Next morning.
I said, that long? He said, it's only a few hours. I totally lost track of time. Didn't even know what time it was. And he saw everyone coming in from the church. Pastor came in, the youth pastor came in, a couple of pastor's family members, like I said, my coworker Denise, her husband, and they were all checking on us, asking us what we needed. He said, what church do you go to? I said, well, Solid Rock. And he said, my uncle's on the board there. He said, I go there when I don't have to work. And another God moment. God sent us someone that knew who we were without really knowing who we were. So we knew we had somebody in there that was a praying man. Randy said I was in surgery 6.5 hours. So that was a long time for him, but I don't remember, so. But as we went upstairs, we were telling the nurses about the horrible treatment we had in the ER. And they said, well, you came in with a gunshot wound. They assume if you got shot, you deserved it. So they don't treat people very nice when they don't know the situation. I mean, they completely ignored us. It was horrible, but they were so wonderful upstairs when we got to our room. We found out later that's why we were in ER so long, because they were trying to get us a room together. So we were actually together in a room through all of this.
But finally, all this time, it was going into 2, 3 in the morning, and they're taking me back and forth to the MRI machine, and, with the gut, they were swelling my stomach up. And it was just incredible pain. They kept doing it to see what was bleeding. They put in the dye, whatever, to see where everything is at. So they kept going back and forth, probably 3 times, and now I'm laying there. And this other nurse from down below, she came, by then I'm still bleeding. She ended up, I'm hairy, but she taped me. It was an area this big, I swear, with a roll of stinking tape. So I'm laying there, and probably another hour later, this other guy came in, and he said, well, I'm going to either staple you or I'll just put a stitch in your bullet hole. I said, that's fine. And I looked down, and I seen that, and he's like, who did that? It's like, so he basically had to rip it off. I tell you what, I'd rather been shot again for that pain. He ended up you want this numb? It's like, just do it. And he stapled that hole. I say, man, that ain't nothing compared to that tape. But I was wearing this up until a few weeks ago, so almost 4 years I've been wearing this belt. But you probably can't see it, but that's where the bullet hit me. So I was wearing my work belt that day. So if I didn't have this, it'd probably been 10 times worse. So I kept this saying this is my lucky belt.
So his bullet hit here, shot down, and went in. Missed major stuff, but ended up with 2 holes through the prostate, nicked his bladder.
Went through the pelvic bone first.
Yeah, put a hole through the pelvic bone. The doctors have never seen any of this. They said normally when a pelvic bone is injured, it shatters because it's like a lifesaver, and it either breaks or shatters. His had a perfect hole. And then the urologist, he told him that he's been doing it 30 years, and he's never seen an injury like his, 2 holes completely heal like it did. Never saw the holes like that in the first place. Then it shot over and rested near his sciatic artery, or sciatic nerve. So they didn't want to do surgery on that because it was too close to the nerve. So his bullet was still there. So he was miserable. Again, so close to the nerve. So every time he sat, every time he moved, it was right there, causing pain every time you turn around. Mine, I had entrance wound here, exit wound here, sheared those 2 bones, and took part, they said probably a section that big of my bone completely out. Then he told me that, well, the other one went in near my waist and went around and was removed out my back when they did my arm surgery. Again, hit nothing. Literally went around and hit nothing. They said they have never seen anything like this. So, again, one of God's blessings. I was trying to explain this to somebody, and I was talking about the bad stuff and how God came through for us, and he said, no, God never wants anything bad to happen. I said, no, he doesn't.
That's actually the bullet. That's in my left cheek, and it's coming out.
We didn't get that far.
So, just a true story here, but the oddest thing, it actually had a blowout, but it was so far deep, it didn't even come to the surface yet. So it already had an exit. It was like the force. It already blew out. There was a scab there already, but it was like inches from the surface. I mean, God.
When we came home, the detectives came, interviewed Randy in the living room, and the other detective took me into the bedroom. And I told her that I can show her how Ben ransacked our room to find the gun that we had in there. She said, no, I understand. She said, you did nothing wrong. She said, right after the shooting, the investigators were there doing their thing, and she said they were looking for another bullet or a bullet hole in the hallway because they had drywall on the floor. She said then they realized it wasn't drywall. It was the bone from my arm. So she said again, she's never seen anything like that. Sorry if this offends anybody, but we even had to shower together when we got home because the 2 of us made one. He couldn't walk. The only way he could walk was with a 4-prong walker because of all the damage he had. The hole through his pelvic bone made it so difficult for him to walk. Plus, everything was a bruise. His didn't show up as well as mine did, but there's my entrance wound in my belly. And that bruise, I mean, it was huge.
Plus, I had a catheter for it was about a good month. It was just basically pee and blood.
So when he sat down in the recliner, I would literally have to get up, brace myself, and with my good arm, let him grab my arm to pull him out of the chair. And then get him to eat or whatever we were doing. And he would have to get in the shower with me because I couldn't do anything with my right arm because I had this as my life. Once they unwrapped me, my arm was all big, nasty, bruised, and then I was in this for 2 months. And now I can slide it on without even doing it, and this is, as it got smaller, it was huge. I really thought I was going to lose it, and I didn't. I had almost 40 staples holding it together. I have 2 rods and 13 screws. And they told me that that bone sometimes grows back, not very often, but to take Tums because it's the best form of calcium you can get. And again, with prayer, the bone grew back. Grew back a little curvy, but it's there. So they said they're still not going to remove the rods and screws unless it's painful because they don't go through any unnecessary surgery. So again, another God moment. We got in the shower one day. He's drying off in the bedroom, or in the bathroom, and I'm in the bedroom. And I hear him, ow! I jumped. I said, what happened? What happened? Went running in there thinking he fell or something. He said, something just hurt when I did that. And I said, well, come here. He came over to the bed, and he laid on the bed. And I said, oh, my word, give me your phone. Give me your phone. He said, what's going on? And I said, just give me your phone. And I took a picture because that bullet actually came to the surface. A week and a half later, they would not touch it because of that nerve. And a week and a half later, it came to the surface on its own.
You notice if you shot a lot of bullets, they mushroom. If you look at it, it didn't mushroom. I mean, it was a perfect head of a bullet that came out, even through the bone and everything. I mean, God had a hand all the way through it. That was the burn off my belt. It hit my belt, then it burned, and that's where it had went in. But that first week we got home, and a little bit beforehand, he was the vice president on our board. He asked for our key. He would take care of our place while we're actually still in the hospital. So that was already Sunday afternoon. So he took the key. Well, he brought it back on Monday because actually my sisters came down from Michigan, come down to see us. And so Monday, he came back to the hospital, and he said, well, we have this family. They own their own cleaning company. We haven't even met them once. We're still kind of new to the church. And here, they cleaned up our whole place, the blood, cleaned clothes, everything, from one end to the other. So now my sisters actually had a place to stay. So we ended up, she got released Tuesday, I got released Wednesday, and I had to walk before I could get out, and that's 4-pronged. Mind you, I still can't move it. I mean, I was praying the whole time. I had to walk down the end of this hallway. And I tell you what, just gritting my teeth that whole, every step of the way just to prove the devil wrong. So I did it. I mean, I was sweating profusely, but I did it. Just get out of the hospital. So we get home, and the first week, it comes to like probably Monday, I think it was, when they had a nurse come out to the house to check on us. It was like a daily thing. Well, I ended up breaking out in hives. I mean, I was red as this folder. I mean, just begging. So that was probably Tuesday, that following Tuesday. So the game told me to go to the family doctor. So it was like the Wednesday. And, well, he ended up giving me a shot for steroids to speed up the infection. And it ended up being the UTI, from the catheter already. And so we're waiting there in the office, and he was actually still new to us. He was a new doctor we found there in Columbus. So we're waiting, and he throws the script, and he said, well, I'll be right back. Real Jamaican, great guy, man, great guy. So we're waiting there, and he comes back a few minutes later, had a Rite Aid bag in his hand. He walked out of his own office, went across the street to Rite Aid, got everything we needed, so we didn't have to make another stop.
He said, now you can go straight home. He said, but take this is what you need.
I mean, what doctor does that? And we end up talking about the word every time we went there. So he gave me that shot and that. We got home. Well, the next day, I ended up busting out in shingles. I got a reaction from that shot. I'll tell you what, I was so miserable. And we ended up going back again, get another script. And like I said, that was the first week and a half from start to that date.
And again, I have one arm. He can't walk. How can he drive? So here I am, shifting the car with the right hand into drive and reverse and whatever, and we're just doing it on our own. We're just going to the doctor. We're going to therapy appointments. We had doctor's appointments almost every day. But again, church family, we never had to worry about a meal. Never had to worry about anything. They said, if you need anything, nope, we got this. God's got our back. He got us through this. We're good. So back and forth to the doctor we go. When I saw that bullet came to the surface, I freaked out. All I could imagine is him walking and this thing just dropping out. I'm like, oh no. So I called the family doctor and I said, Dr. Carl, can I bring Randy in? He says, sorry, this is evidence. Need to go to ER. Police officer needs to be there. Sorry, we got to send you to ER. So luckily we weren't there but a half hour. Every single time we've had to go, we have been there 6 hours. Half hour. They were there. They pulled that bullet out. Police officer collected it, and we were gone. That was a huge relief for him. That alleviated a lot of that pain. That didn't alleviate all the belly pain and him having to walk with the 4-prong walker, but it helped tremendously with sitting and everything.
At the time we were in the hospital, kind of back up just a little bit, my boss and the HR lady came to the hospital every day. They brought me my paperwork, my short term, and so he was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, he just happened to be there Sunday. His own wife miscarried. She was on the other side of the hospital, and he was in my room. Just a Christian guy. I tell you what, we just family after that.
I said, Reuben, go be with your wife. He said, I will, but I want to make sure you guys are taken care of. Randy needs his paperwork to get this rolling. Again, another angel. We just had such a huge support system through all of this. And Edwin, that actually grabbed the key, I didn't even know he had the key. He comes walking in, and he's got my bathrobe with him. I looked at him, I said, what are you doing? He said, well, we got your place cleaned up for you. He said, and this was on the back of your door, and it was all blood from your arm. He said, so they got this clean, but I'm sorry we couldn't save your bedding. He said, but your place is taken care of. I just started crying. So thank you so much. You have no idea what a huge help that was. And we just had people stepping in everywhere. You want to go to this part, or are we good? Sure. So we're going to church when we can. Again, it was hard for him to sit there. So pastor said, hey, Christy, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. I was going to therapy, and the gal that walked out to get me, I was floored. Another God moment, sending us as angels. It was a gal from our church. She said, I'm so glad I have you. She said, I was praying that I would be able to help you. So she was my therapist, got me all set. I was just about ready to get back to work. Pastor said, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. Pulls me in his office, and he said, you ready to come back to work? I said, yeah, just about. He said, good. How you'd like to come back as my executive assistant? My coworker, Denise, had left for something else. So I didn't just go back to work. I went back to work with a promotion.
And I was off from work for, well, it happened April 12th, and I think it was second week of June, I think I made it back to work. And in the meantime, guys gave me vacation days until I got into my short term. They collected money. First time ever the company ever matched donation in history. I'm telling you, God was working. I wasn't even in the building back yet. And so I got back and had a few 8-hour days, then I could at least walk around and pipe fitter. So worked with copper, I was clawing around, made condensers, and so I definitely did my time, but I prevailed and just proved the devil wrong. He wasn't going to get us down. I mean, we did our part, God did his.
The media was another story. So many stories hit the media. We're laying in our hospital bed, and we see the picture of our duplex up on the screen. Off. Didn't even listen to it. But then we see the stories. Said that 15-year-old shoots his parents for not letting him look up Bible verses for a girl that wanted to be saved. My jaw dropped. I looked at him, I said, "What is this?" My brother sent me a message and said, "Do not look at the comments, do not look at the stories, just don't look at it. You guys don't need that." Pastor Jay stepped in a few times because even the media said that we did not show up for Ben's arraignment.
That Monday.
We didn't show up for Ben's arraignment because we were still in the hospital. So Pastor Jay had called and corrected them on that. They did a phone interview. He corrected, this had nothing to do with the Bible. Again, Satan's trying to attack. You're not going to turn this into a biblical thing. This is a pure God moment. You're not going to take this from us. Come to find out, Ben did say that to the detectives at first because he was trying to justify what he did. Well, we've clarified with the detectives. He did say he wanted to look up Bible verses, and he did. He wrote a whole page of scripture for this girl that wanted to be saved. Said we made him do his chores instead. I said, "Oh, why did his sisters come from Michigan and have to do the dishes?" Ben didn't do them. He had 2 chores, dishes and trash. Trash wasn't taken out. His sisters took it out for us. We didn't make him do his chores instead of Bible verses. So we clarified all that with the media. It was just a lot of attacks. And God came through on every level. So we turned the TV off, and we knew God was giving us this time. We were so exhausted dealing with everything, morning, noon, and night. Phone calls from the school, going through the drug court. Like I said, our finances were down to nothing. At one point, we had $26 in our bank account. Ben gets up to go to school, and I noticed this wad in his pocket. I said, "What do you have in your pocket?" "Nothing." I said, "No, there's something there. What do you have?" "It's none of your business." I said, "Oh, really?" I reached in his pocket, and I grabbed out a wad of money. This child had almost $60 on him. I said, "You have more money than your father and I do. Where did you get this money?" He says, "None of your business." Okay. So I made a phone call to the school. I said, "I need to know what's going on." So the principal went, talked to him, searched his locker. He got suspended for having cigarettes and a lighter. We don't smoke. We don't know where he got these from. He said he was selling cigarettes. Still, no idea. To this day, we do not know where he got these cigarettes from. But he actually raised his fist to me, and I grabbed him, pinned him down, and said, "You need to calm down. I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to calm down. You will not raise your hand to me." So then when his father got home and started questioning him, he did the same thing to him. He actually took the stance and squared off with him.
And I ain't say a word. I came in the door, took off my boots. He was standing right there. "Hey, I believe in discipline." I backhand him right in the stomach, just like that. Took his stinking breath away. I say, "You know something? That'll never happen again."
But again, he did not leave a bruise. He took the wind out of him. Enough to make a point, but not beat him. So we definitely made sure that corrections were made. So afterwards, he said he shot us because he was so angry, but he couldn't remember what he was angry at. So he took it out on the only two people he could. Again, we had psychiatrists before, we had counselors before, and you take what God would want you to do and what the world would want you to do, and you try to combine the two. So we did what we thought was going to work, and it didn't. So now God stepped in. He made sure that Ben now gets the 24-hour care he needs. They moved him from Columbus when he was sentenced to 5 years. And being a minor, being 15, that put him in till 19. And they sent him to Augusta because that has the best mental health facility for juveniles. So we knew that God was working in him, God was giving us the rest that we needed, and things were happening for all of us.
It's been a couple of years. I haven't spoke to him at all. 2 years ago, we ended up getting a call. It was a Sunday night, and it's probably a good 10 o'clock at night. So they called my phone. I didn't want to talk to him. I usually just hang up. Well, they ended up calling the home phone. So, all right, better answer it. So there was ended up being a little situation. It was Saturday, Sunday. He was fighting, throwing chairs, all this going on at the facility. So I went into Sunday, and he ended up being put into the restraint room. Well, he was following the cops out of the room, in the facilities. You got your automatic door. And, well, he stuck his hand out, and the door came by and pinched off his finger. So that was the reason they were calling. Say, well, I guess he shouldn't have been stupid now, huh? I mean, I didn't care. I mean, you did foolish stuff, you keep doing it, that's what you get. So they ended up taking it to the hospital, but they couldn't save it. So that Wednesday, I ended up talking to the main director of the whole facility. He said, well, we got it all on camera, so I don't doubt you a bit. So I said, well, talk to him. So that's fine. So on Thursday, the next day, it was probably 4 in the afternoon, I don't know, about 6, but they kept calling. I said, I'll be there. I'm on a motorcycle, so once I get there, I can't answer my phone. So they call him, and first 5 minutes was decent. I was like, why don't you, I was finally talking to Ben. I didn't even recognize him. He's fitting in with the jail people, and I didn't recognize it, but I didn't know it was my son. I didn't know who he was. So he told him a whole story about that, and I kept referring Bible verses. Did you do this? Did you do that? Well, this, that, and the other. And so after about 5 minutes of that, then he went on this tangent of, I didn't let him talk to his mom all these years. And it just went back and forth. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, then he started cursing right off the bat, top of the lungs, and the counselor, they're on speaker, we're on speaker. I was like, what are you talking about? It angered me so bad, and then they basically hung up on him. I'm just boiling by then. The next couple of days later, I ended up breaking out in shingles again. It just so much anger. And so that was over 2.5 years ago, and haven't even spoke a word to him.
He did send us a letter. He said, I hope you forgive me, but I really don't care if you do. We have the letter in this bag along with all the other paperwork. That bag alone has our bills and his mental evaluations and some of his drug court papers.
And some of our blood on there also.
Bag. One of the papers in there is splattered with my blood. There's a couple of splatters on the bag. That bag was sitting in the living room when we got shot. So it's a good reminder for us. It's a good reminder that we did all we could. And God had our backs regardless of what happened. The psychologist told us, the court appointed, not ours, that we did everything that anybody could ever do. That Ben was bound and determined that day to hurt somebody. And it just happened to be us because we were the ones that were there. He said it's a good thing he found our gun, because if he didn't, he probably would have used a knife, and he said, I won't be sitting here talking to you. Again, Ben knew how to shoot. So he should have killed us as we were standing there. 3 shots in us, and we're standing here talking to you. Everything is that God moment. A lot of our stressors after the fact were the people from the juvenile center. The counselors that he had were actually believing him. He said, we beat him every day. He's just telling them anything he can to justify his actions and make us look like the bad guys. So we actually had to send, several conversations later, we had to send them the mental evaluation reports, the drawings he had of him killing his mother before she could kill him, some of his journal papers. So this has nothing to do with us. You're treating us like the bad guys. So after that conversation, when he had his finger cut off, we actually got a phone call back from the counselor saying, I'm so sorry. We thought you were the ones that were making this happen, and he was just reacting to us. And they actually saw it for the first time that it was his anger that was the issue. So now, he was actually released this past April. He is now in a halfway house for 8 weeks, and then we don't know where he goes. But the last we talked to him, we told him, we love you, we always will, we want what's best for you, but we can never trust you again. Everything was fine that day. And I'm sorry, but we can never trust you. So we will be there when he decides to open his heart. We will be there. But until then, it's a pure God thing, and we keep praying. God will protect him. God has protected us. And we keep praying that he will open his heart again. We know it's in there. He just needs to accept it. One of the stresses were the bills rolling in. They were huge. Ambulance, hospital, anesthesiologist, doctors, assistants, you name it. I'm looking at that, and I looked at him. I said, what are we going to do with this? We weren't even back to work yet. But we never missed a bill. All of our bills were on time. God made a way. Then I called the hospital to make payment arrangements. The recording comes on. I'm listening to it, and I thought, did I hear that right? I hung up, called back again. They said, for victims' rights, dial this number. What is that? So I hit the number. And I said, can you tell me what this is? Well, victims of a crime, we help with bills. I said, really? I said, okay, how do I do that? We never had to pay a penny for ambulance, hospital, doctor, none of our medical bills.
At least $100,000.
Then one day, I'm back at work. Everything's great. There was an after-school program we had upstairs. One of the gentlemen up there was having problems with his blood pressure. They called an ambulance. Guys show up. They go upstairs to him. And I looked at the guy that was next to me. He was also an EMT, but he helped out upstairs in our after-school program. I said, Jonathan, that's him. He said, who? I said, my EMT. I'll never forget those eyes. I said, that's him. He's, no way. I said, I'm telling you. So they get done. They take care of the gentleman upstairs. They come downstairs. I said, you were at my house. He looked at me. He said, who are you and where? And I said, the shooting on Old Town. He looked at me and he said, you're right. He said, I'm so glad you stopped me. I said, yep, look at my hand. He said, I am so glad you stopped me. He said, we never get to see what happens to people after we drop them off at the hospital. He said, but let me tell you, I've never seen an injury like yours where they had their hand. He said, with that type of injury, it usually severs the nerves, the arteries, and everything, and they end up losing their hand. I said, I thought I was going to. I said, but again, that God moment.
Amen. Amen.
I might have pain, but Satan is not going to stop me from raising this hand, praising God, because without God, we would not be here.
Just one more quick note. When I transferred up here, I worked at Heatcraft here at Stone Mountain, and the first week I was talking about kind of our story, you know, we came from Columbus. And the one gentleman, he said, did you hear about that couple that got shot? I did this. And come to find out, he actually lived on the same street when it happened. He's like, man, that was you? I said, yes, sir. So God was just putting more pieces together and just showing where we came from.
And we are grateful to Pastor Mark for letting us share our testimony.
So thank you, Jesus. Praise to God.
I'm here writing stuff down real quick while they're talking because they have a lot of thoughts. But isn't this an unbelievable story? Unbelievable story, and a lot of bitterness and hurts can get in you over situations like this. And I know they've had it. They've had to heal in that process. And but I feel like God has divinely sent them here to be support and help with us here as well. This is a big story. And not only do they have a child that's involved and not knowing if this can possibly happen again, but or anything else can happen to this boy or someone else. And they have these worries that are actually evolving now. We just got to believe the protection of God on their life. And some of you know Columbus real well. Several of you. I think we got Corey, you know Columbus a little bit. Ann and them knows Columbus. We got several people here from Columbus. I don't know what God's sending me Columbus. But it's just, and when I heard this story, I said, wow, they fit in here with this type of story. It's unbelievable. And the streets and the roads that had this happen on, a lot of people is connected with them in this area. Nothing just happens in our life. And so we don't understand a lot that takes place that happens. But this is an amazing story. I told them it needs to be written down. It needs to be told to a world that God can be there with you in the midst of hell that you're going through. Let's all stand. I want you to remember Randy and Christy strong and pray with them. So let's be support to them. And they're strong. They're big boys and big girls. I mean, that area. But we want to be support to them because, you know, this son is just 19 in the earth. And so he's going to be getting out, and he's still bitter. And if they release him, what he could possibly do is crazy. And so you never know. But God is a protector, right? Thank you guys for listening to this. We went over our time, but I told them that I wanted them to tell the whole story because I didn't want it to stop, and I was hearing the whole story, and it is amazing. It's an amazing story. Miracles are still taking place. Scott's got miracles he's going to tell one day that God has done in his own life recently and is happening right now and in the past. God is doing miracles that are unbelievable in our lives. I'm telling you, God can turn your situations around. You think you're going through hell, like I said earlier. There's people going through worse than you. and still raising their hands. And I would love for y'all to see them afterwards. I asked them to stand down here for a minute. You come look at the scars that are on their wrist and their arm. I want you to hug them, let them know how much we appreciate them pouring their heart out to us as well here, people. And I thank you for coming today. This is an abnormal way to have service today. I thought it was very, very appropriate and needed so much in our lives today. Needed much. I thank you guys. I love you, and thank you so much. Thank you for coming and being with us. We've got one more Connect Group class this week that we would love for you to come and be part of on Wednesday at 7. Then we're out for the summer from our Connect Groups. But God is doing great things. Next week is Memorial Day weekend. So come, let's celebrate that weekend with us together here. But God has been powerful. And this is proven the fact that God is real. So thank you guys. I love you all. Thank you for Tamika. Good to see you. This is an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. You heard a neat story. But good to see you guys. But anyway, love you. Is that yours? God, all right, I got to see you in a minute. All right, love you all. Go to the cafe, enjoy something. Yes, I thank you for coming. Sunday we're going to have a great service. We're going to have great service. We're a family. We're going to have a good time. Thank you for coming and being a part. Love you all. Be blessed.